Hi there, welcome to FMCG by Alex. I'm Alex, and today I would like to talk to you about forecasting and demand planning. So, why is it important? First of all, let me explain the process of supply chain. It starts with raw materials. So, raw materials are harvested or extracted from nature, usually, turned into something that can be used in the factory. There's sometimes a process has to be washed, has to be maybe cut, maybe chopped, whatever. Basically, the factory is processing it into whatever FMCG product you're selling. Then it goes to the distributor. The distributor then distributes it to all the different retailers. Now, this is a very straightforward process. What salespeople normally are involved in is actually, selling from the factory to the distributor, and then they monitor the distributor selling to the retailer. That's normally as far as the sales team goes. So, actually, what happens before that, the raw material procurement is, not something they are aware of. Yeah, they know it happens, but it's not. There's no insight in, like, what are the challenges there. Is it difficult to find? Is the pricing under pressure, etc., etc.? Do you need to plan it in a seasonal manner or whatever? Harvesting time and all those things. So that's something that is really, for salespeople a bit, a black box, so to speak. So that already tells you a little bit of the problem I'm going to address. The issue here is that, in order to manage supply chain properly, you need to basically make sure that you know what is the amount you're going to sell more or less this year. It's like an estimate, like a general estimate of, okay, this year we're going to sell this much. You break that down per month, you break that down per day if need be, you break that down per distributor. So each distributor is, assuming each distributor is actually taking care of a channel or an area. Retailers normally, they actually are part of this distributor forecast basically, and that's how you are putting together your forecast. It's like a reasonable estimate of what you're going to sell. So the way you have use a forecast is not only for the sales team to know, oh, this is how much I need to sell, otherwise I'm not getting my incentive or my bonus. Basically, it's usually a matter of, the business owner, the guy who owns the factory or the lady who owns the factory, needs to make an estimate of how much they're going to sell, because they need to know how many raw materials they are needing to procure and how many workers they need to put into the factory in order to produce the amount that is needed. Now, what happens if the supply chain fails, and the forecasting process fails basically, and the factories turning out a lot more products than is being sold. So it's piling up basically. Now, normally what salespeople do is, oh, let's push more into the distributor. And that's a short-term goal, because normally the arrow between factory and distributor, that is actually the sales process of company, the principal to the distributor. That's the sale. That is normally what's monitored. What's going from the distributor to the retailer is not, something that is counting towards the actual sales of the company. Yeah, that's actually the residual. So the problem with that is that as soon as you start building up stock in the distributor, then there is a congestion actually going on, where distributor is piling up, but the retailer is not able to receive stock because they also have stock piling up, and it's like completely full of in the market, because maybe consumer demand is going down, or it's a seasonal low or something like that. So if you keep on churning out product in the factory because the raw materials have been booked and have been produced, so it's very important for the forecast to be adjusted in time. So you have a target in the end. I'll go into that in a moment, but you have basically a rolling forecast that actually attaches to that, and that is how you can adjust this flow. So the factory is not wasting a lot of time, resources, and money by procuring more raw materials, piling it up because there might also be an expiry date, and producing stock that nobody can use because it's not sold. So you need to really make sure that, this is clear for everybody in the organization, and for the commercial director or vice president or whatever you want to call it inside the company, it's very important to have this overview and have the link towards, okay, this is the supply chain side and this is the sales side. So this is as far. I'll go into more detail in a moment. Then we get to the how. So basically, forecasting is initially based on macroeconomic indicators. So how is the economy looking? What basically are the expected growth drivers in the economy? If there is a gloom and doom outlook, of course, yeah, your forecasting could be a bit more on the conservative side. If you have a boom year ahead, basically like a lot of incentives or something that the government is planning to stimulate a certain sector, it could be very, very boom rather than gloom, basically. Then you basically have a an annual target versus a rolling forecast. So you start with by formula, say, okay, what did I do last year, and then you have an annual target you put together. But you need to attach a rolling forecast to it. So let's say every month, every 2 months to 3 months, basically you have a forecast that you update. So there's a target, but the forecast actually can be higher or lower than your target. That means you can capitalize on various factors in the industry that might, mean that you have budgeted too conservatively. I used to work for a company that had short supply issues, so they had, every single time we were using, both the raw milk supply from the farmers. That was one of the constraints, the bottlenecks, and as much of the machinery we could get from Tetra Pak at the time. So Tetra Pak had quite a lot of demand from China at the time. So Indonesia was maybe not the priority for them. So my boss at the time was constantly, in a tug of war to get more machines for Tetra Pak, and Combi Block, SIG Combi Block was the other supplier. So those two suppliers actually were, also the bottleneck for us. So we couldn't add more machines than we were, yeah, able to get. Yeah, so in essence, like, okay, you can only get one more machine this year. Now, then that meant we can only grow by this capacity that this machine is churning out per day. So there's of course a theoretical capacity for the factory and an actual capacity. So the actual capacity always lower than the theoretical capacity. So that's also part of the forecast. You can't, of course, forecast or target more than you can produce. So that is actually the iron rule. Um, Rolling forecast needs to adjust because if your factory keeps on churning out at 100%, then the forecast is maybe only 80. You keep on adding stock to your pile, and eventually, if you have something that has a very short expiry date, you will have a problem very quickly. A longer expiry date, it might, still be manageable, but eventually, it will bite you in the backside. Then how to start with forecasting is basically baseline times one plus growth factors. That is the rule of thumb. This is purely by formula. We're having a more complicated model for forecasting, but if I see it, most of the large companies also still do it. Okay, we do last year times 1.1, for example. So, 10% growth because the market will grow by 4.5%, compound average growth, basically. Or we want to basically share or capture market share from the competitors this much. So in the end, you want to outgrow the market. So if you outgrow the market, means you capture more market share. Now, some of the factors there are, of course, new channels. Are you going into new channels? Now, that needs also another forecasting forecasting method, basically. New SKUs, so the new products that you are launching, it will also add, of course, to your bottom line. So there are more products, meaning another revenue stream from both new channels and new products. Normally, you will have retailers you're working with that also open new stores. So these new stores also generate more sales. At least that's the general idea. So you have a factor that is called same store growth. So growth in the stores that exist will maybe also grow. Usually, it's less than you think. And of course, you have basically for the category and for your own product, but also new outlets will your pipeline for that. So and you are adding new channels or new SKUs or new stores for various retailers. Yeah, you call it pipelining. So meaning the forecast is adjusted in a one-time spike to accommodate for that. You can't assume that, hey, because this month there's a new store opening, every month I'm going to sell that. So that is something you need to filter out when you are looking at the baseline from last year. This is quite a complicated mathematical exercise. So there's quite a lot of studies about how to do this properly. The truth is that, yeah, accurate forecasting is very important, but it's also very, very difficult and maybe almost impossible. That's why this rolling forecast, meaning like, every month more or less you reset and you look at what is the current situation, how is it developing, and you adjusting. So you can actually say, oh, instead of 100%, now I'm going to just produce 80% to match the rolling forecast. So there is a balancing act. So a lot of companies are trying to cut costs, of course, like they're trying to manage costs quite properly. Maybe cut is not the right word, but manage cost. There is a method called just-in-time production. So you don't have too much stock. You're just producing it in time for it to hit the market. So that usually is also something that is very important to keep in mind when you are looking at a method of maybe expiry date management. So you're trying to not build up stock of stuff that is very short, has very short expiry date. So that is a bit of a balancing act where you say, okay, can I balance it so that I'm not producing that I keep too much stock so my expiry date goes wild, but can I also still have enough stock to really make sure that there's no out of stock in any of the outlets and therefore consumers don't face empty shelves of my product. Now, for this reason, also depends largely on your expiry date and also the location of your distributors. So, let's say Indonesia as a beautiful example versus the Netherlands. So, the Netherlands is a very small country, a bit like Singapore. Everything can be done in 2-3 hours. Basically, you drive through the Netherlands from west to east, north to south, and back again. So, in one day, you can supply quite a lot of retailers inside the country. So they very flat country, good road network. Of course, there's some congestion, but the issue with that is that logistical issues almost don't exist. So you have very efficient distribution. A country like Indonesia, on the other hand, is 17,000 islands. So you have a couple of big ones, of course, where most of the population is concentrated, which are the more important distribution centers for you. So if you have inter-island distribution that you need, so you need to forward from, let's say you're producing in Java and you're selling to Sumatra, to Kalimantan, to Sulawesi, and even to Papua, which is a very remote. So let's say imagine you fly about 6 hours from Jakarta to Jayapura. It's the same as from Amsterdam to Dubai, just to give you an impression of how far that is. It's a huge country, 270 million people, so they're all spread out over this, was it this islands, these islands basically. So for that reason, a distributor in a remote area will need some buffer stock, so they can't, push a button and say, okay, tomorrow I need something from the factory. No, that might also be on the way for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks or maybe even a month. Or bad weather aside, you can always have delays there. So that's the reason why they need to have a buffer stock. So that is days of sale. Now that's also another challenge to forecast that properly. So distributors also have a forecasting method where you say, okay, can I manage with a little bit more stock of this, a little bit less stock of that. So in order to avoid also that they have bad stock and that they can constantly supply the fastest moving items to their most important customers. So that's actually the more important part. Issue there is that as soon as at the factory the production is a bit out of whack, the salespeople start to become creative and say, let's sell what we have because I still have a target, I still have an incentive to make, and my boss will scream at me if I'm not hitting it. So as soon as you are having an imbalance in the factory side, salespeople start moving product to the distributor, which the distributor doesn't need. So it's outside of their, outside of their index. So the index will be out of balance basically. So this is one of the things that you need to keep in mind when managing supply chain. That this is the tendency. So if there's nobody, on in the controls, behind the controls, basically the salespeople will run wild and do that. And the distributor has a lot of stock of an SKU which is not in demand by retail, which means you will eventually have a lot of bad stock. So yes, this month we have the numbers we need, but next month we have a problem. So that is digging one hole to fill the other, in essence. Another issue with forecasting is you have seasonal highs and lows. So in, let's say, Europe, you have quite a predictable cycle. So you have Christmas is quite a peak season, basically. Like the winter months maybe are a bit lower. Summer months definitely here are very, very quiet. So there's a lot of people on holiday abroad. So supermarkets are, maybe stocking less, except for the tourist destinations in the Netherlands. Of course, a lot of tourists come to the Netherlands also from abroad. So let's say if you're on the coast, the supermarkets are going nuts with regards to sales. But if you are in maybe larger cities, people will maybe not go to the supermarket when they're on holiday. That's the seasonal highs and lows here. If you look at Asia, so let's say Indonesia, in that sense, again, it's a good reference because Indonesia is a Muslim country. So you have about 80, 85, maybe even 90% of the population is Muslim. So not counting these. It means that the holidays are actually very important, Muslim holidays. And the problem with, which they call Eid Mubarak, which is the major holiday. That's the fasting month. So during the fasting month, people don't eat during the day, but they eat a lot in the night. So actually the food consumption goes through the roof normally in those months. So that's actually the seasonal peak in Indonesia. The problem is that it shifts every single year. So every single year it's in different months. And you can predict, of course, which months, but that means that when it was in July was the peak in 2023, but 2024 it's for example, let's say in March, whatever. You basically have a more difficult time to forecast. So you need to constantly adjust manually. So you can't do it by phone. You must adjust manually your forecasting. So this is one of the challenges that you face when creating your annual sales budget, in essence. Just wanted to share these considerations with you. So more often than not, the market corrects. That means that you've budgeted too optimistically. I've worked in companies where we were indeed below. So actually, we could sell more than we produced, but that was mainly because of production constraints. So it's not really an example which applies in like 99 out of 100 times. You will have a situation where you have produced more than you can sell. So that is the normal way companies are more optimistic at the start of the year to forecast. Um, Trouble hitting the target. So that's actually one of the symptoms. Yeah. So in the end, your salespeople are struggling. They are trying to reach the target, but the product is moving. So they get stuck in the market. So you have things not moving out of the supermarket to consumers. Consumer buying is down. And that means also the distributor in the end has a problem selling to retail because retailers are not buying because the shelves are full, which means the distributor is not buying according to target from the principal. That's the factory. Things are piling up if the production is as much. So this is one of the reasons why this forecasting is very important, where you adjust also your production to match this. Now, one of the things that your salespeople do, like I said, is because it's always a delayed reaction. So you have trouble hitting the market. Oh, hey, I'm not hitting my target. Salespeople are just focused on the target. These are very laser focused people who don't really think much further, usually, if you are in the field. I just need to hit my target left way, right way around. I don't care. Therefore, they, you know, usually invent a promo. They try and push a little bit more stock in. This is where, the start of trouble, basically. Now, if at some point this is not corrected, so the delayed reaction also has an impact on the production side. So you have overproduction versus the forecast. So you have still the production because the forecast is actually being artificially kept high because your salespeople are trying, all sorts of tricks to still, delay the inevitable. You still produce too much. So most companies have this delayed reaction where they, are too late to react to it, and then there is still a bit of a stock problem. One of the indicators of this is that there are a lot of TPR promotion in the store, temporary price reduction, so discounts in plain English. If you see that happening, so there are brands that are doing a lot of discounts because maybe they're changing packaging or introducing a new range and they want to flush out a lot of products that are discontinuing. But the regular indicator is, so there's also other reasons, but the regular indicator is that as soon as you see a lot of discounts in the store for a brand and then non-stop, like chain linking discounts in order to flush out stock, that is a big indicator that there is trouble brewing. So you have a market correction where they have over budgeted, that the pressure on the sales team is disproportionately high to perform, that they are trying to resort to this sort of stuff. The problem with this is that in the end, it is not good for anyone. It's not good for the brand. So the brand is the only one who's actually it's good for is the consumer, because the consumer is very happy that they get the product on this. So the retailer is losing money on it, so he's not getting as much money as they should. The principal is losing money, the distributor, the retailer. So in the end, all these stakeholders are actually in trouble because a promotion means that you need to reduce the price, meaning it comes out of your margin. Retailers might be the least affected because the trading terms budget will be used, like the marketing funds will be used to pay for all this. Normally the principal pays for this. Distributor might also be less affected, but it's still not good. Yeah, you have basically a target that is not reached and all those things. So in the end, they are selling more product, but then at a lower margin. So this is something that can eventually bring companies into big trouble if it persists. Another indicator is bundling of the same brand SKU. So in essence, it's a hidden discount. So you have the same SKUs or the same brands that are bundled together, and you normally can see the expiry date on the back, which indicates that there is a problem with the shelf life of this product. So they are under pressure to flush it out, otherwise it goes expired, and then the stock is actually needs to go back to the distributor and then eventually being destroyed or going back to the principal, whatever the process is. So this is one of the things that you see in market correction. So like I said, normally the delayed impact of this is actually something that creates larger problems in the end. And one of the larger problems in the end is that there are layoffs and consolidations in the sales force. So there are maybe areas being pushed together. People are just being fired because we can't sustain this size of sales force anymore because of the lower sales, basically. So this is one of the things that you come across when you are working in FMCG companies. So you have to see it's like a harmonic of a harmonica, basically. So you are pulling and contracting. It's expanding and contracting constantly. Where it's a good time. Let's expand the sales team. Oh, we are out of momentum. Then the sales team actually needs to be consolidated. Then you have these massive layoffs and massive consolidation. It's the same thing for any startup that gets funding. I get a couple of $1 million in the bank. Let's hire everything but the kitchen sink, and then money is gone. Let's fire all these guys again and consolidate and go back with the core team. So, I mean, FMCG companies are normally more established, so they have more predictable sales cycles. But have to say there are quite a lot of examples where companies have you know gone to massive layoffs and yeah, consolidation in the sales force due to this fact that they were only looking at green grass, blue sky, and go go go. That they were looking at yeah, only the optimistic outlook, and in the end, the problem came. Yeah, that the sales were not materializing in the end. I hear you think, yes, Alex, that's all very nice, but how about good forecasting? So, what are your tips then? If you've done it so often and you've seen all these things go wrong, then you must know what to do. Now, don't worry, I have a few pointers. Like I said, it's difficult to give you a how-to step-by-step approach because every industry is a little bit different. Every country is also a little bit different with regards to how this works. But generally, you would go for market growth. So let's say the market is growing in 2024 by let's say 4.5%. I think I used that example before. And then you decide what is your additional target. So what is my investment? So you normally layer it. So okay, from my existing stores, what am I going to get beyond the market growth? So let's say you invest your ATL to just grow as much as the market. You have a television campaign or some online activity that you are ATL marketing. So that is the budget you're investing to be able to grow at least as much as the market. That means you grow, but you don't add any market share. You don't grow beyond the market. The additional target is actually the share you want to capture from your competitor. Now, the problem with that is that your competitor has exactly the same idea. Everybody would like to grow and gain market share. Market growth is normally let's say, not saying free or not free growth, but it's the growth you have to make the least effort for. Depends a little bit on which segment you are. Sometimes the market growth is very much concentrated in premium or in the price sensitive category. But you have to just imagine for yourself, like, what is the additional target I am setting for my company? So the additional target is basically something that can be I am going to do these activities. I'm going to open more retailers. I'm going to open new areas. I'm only selling before in half the country. Now I'm going to also do the entire country. Now, that also is stuff that you can calculate into that total additional target. It's safe to actually have three scenarios. You have a low, a base, and a best case scenario. So a low case scenario is basically when, let's say you do 80% or 75% of whatever you were planning initially. The base is like 100%, so you have a reasonable explanation for a reasonable growth still. The low scenario can, by the way, still be growth, but maybe very limited, maybe limited to indeed just the market growth. And then the best case scenario is like, okay, if everything aligns, the stars align, then the best case scenario is that competition is sleeping and we are really capturing, or something really clicks in terms of the marketing and trade marketing campaigns that we are putting together. So people are just very interested in our brands. And of course, if you have a lot of uncertainty about new products or new channels that you are going to, or new areas that you are going to explore, this best case scenario is best to put all that in there. So the base case should not contain any of these uncertainties, basically, or as few uncertainties as possible. So low should not contain any uncertainties. Then it's very important to evaluate the progress monthly/quarterly. So depending a little bit on the cycle, the process, and the resources you have in your team. If you're a very small company, you don't need to maybe do it as frequent as in a larger company. Sounds maybe a bit counterintuitive, but let's say you have a large company with, let's say, 20 guys in the field and spread out over a massive country and like Indonesia, for example. And you don't have the finger on the pulse for what's happening in the market. So you get the feedback from these people from the field. Okay, this is happening. We are below target. We are struggling because of this and this and this. That's the evaluation allows you to adjust. So to find solutions. What is it? Is it a demand issue? Is it a problem that something is not effective enough? Is our distributor maybe not working properly? All these operational issues can be a part of it. Another part might be the demand. So those are the things that you need to evaluate regularly in order to be able to adjust. Then as an option, you can add a stretch target. So meaning, if everything goes really according to plan, then this stretch target is something that you have, an option for to, get your sales team not to be complacent. Like, oh, we already reached 100%. No, then for maybe for an extra bonus, or you take the entire team out on a retreat or something like that. There should be some sort of reward, basically, just to spice up the idea. Be very careful with rewards, though, because then people might be very much, focused on that reward rather than doing what's best for the company. But I mean, if you frame it properly and you manage it properly, are behind the steering wheel, so to speak, while they're doing that, that is the reason that it can work wonders. So then, like I mentioned, salespeople have the tendency to build up stock in channels. Or, hey, help me out. I need to achieve my target. You're at 80%. Can you buy this and this and this, which you actually don't need, to help me out this month. I've been doing it myself also. So, I'm guilty as charged. That's as much as every other salesperson in the world, probably. But if you allow this to happen rampantly, so without any control, so a little bit might still be able to correct, but if you do it in a very exaggerated way, so okay, every month we need to constantly sell what we have, and sometimes you just don't have a choice, but that is another story. Then you are actually digging a hole and filling the hole from last month with the earth from this hole, basically. And every month you are making a bigger hole for yourself. So that is one of the things that is eventually leading to huge problems that you need to solve, and it can be very costly. So that's also one of the things I've been unfortunately on the receiving end of. I think a lot of companies have this same issue where they put an extraordinary amount of pressure on the sales team to perform. So you need to sell, sell, sell. Why are you below? You're not performing. People are reprimanded, demoted, punished for whatever reason. The salary cuts, also, etc. Especially if there's an incentive in bonus in play, then that really can lead to disasters if you have motivation like that. So then people can sometimes forget what's good for the company and say, oh, I just need to achieve that part that I'm responsible for, because they just don't see the big picture of the entire thing. So you can't blame them, because you tell them as C-level or director or VP, whatever your position is, you tell them you should sell more, you should push harder. But when suddenly the problem comes, then they've done it. So that's actually something not entirely fair, of course, to blame people for what you told them to do. Then another good pointer for forecasting is that, like I mentioned, in this low base and best case scenario, you should not rely for volume on new SKUs, because let's face it, new SKUs, they are and new products are actually not proven, so you really don't know what they're going to do. It can be massive, can be fantastic. Like I think, for example, in Indonesia, Mayora, when they launched Tepucuk Harum, it was now the number one RTDT brand. They probably could not have fathomed that, this could have grown from let's also do an RTDT product to you have the number one brand in the country. So I remember they started with one machine, and then they quickly had to add capacity because the demand was massive, skyrocketing. Basically, there was quite a lot of issue with the demand. Um, and that was mainly also like because the company I was working for at that time, Ultra Jaya, we had a product, tea product called Tekotak, which was actually one of the major brands in Indonesia at that time. Still is, by the way, but I mean, it's fallen a little bit in the ranking since then. The issue with that was that yeah, we had a short supply issue, so we just couldn't produce enough to supply the markets. Now it's very nice that we had situations where there were retailers and wholesalers coming to the warehouse of our distributor in Kalimantan and then say, can I buy this? Yeah, sure. If you pay now cash, then maybe in 2 weeks I'll be able to supply you with the product. So that was unheard of luxury. The problem with that is that if there is a competitor coming in who then suddenly has product and can supply, at some point people get used to it. Hey, it's cheaper. It doesn't taste bad. It's actually tastes pretty good. Pucuk haram also has a very very good taste, basically. So they were using this hiatus basically in supply for the number one brand in the country, on the island. So Kalimantan was very much a Tekotak island to get in and take the position actually as the number one brand. So this is one of the things that is an example of how it can skyrocket. A lot of new brands, of course, don't have that success, unfortunately, and a lot of stuff that we say, oh, we have volume penciled into our forecast, which doesn't materialize because maybe after 2-3 months we come to the conclusion this is not even worth continuing because nobody buys it. Even the best market research can lead to complete duds actually hitting the market, where you simply have a failed product. Like I think there was actually a research even in the Netherlands where 96% of the products that actually hit the supermarket are gone again in 2 years. So imagine 4% only make it 2 years, in 2 years time, basically. So that's one of the things that, tells me, you should not rely too much on new SKUs for any volume. You should pencil it in, but then in the best case scenario where you actually have maybe this new product. And the problem with that is also with production, that new products, to produce new products, you need to, of course, stock a lot of raw material. So the best thing is to actually step by step, like I said, with Mayora did it very smart with, okay, we started with one machine. One machine is running at full capacity, then we add another machine, and so forth. So this is one of the things that adds also the capacity to it. So there's a lot more potential that they were actually tapping into. Sometimes that can also come from a retailer. Retailers say, oh, we can actually sell much more than we forecasted initially. Now, that's one of the upsides. On the other side, you also have retailers who come back to you and say, hey, I can only do half of what you used to, what you forecasted. So for new SKUs, like I said, this is too much of a problem because you simply don't know yet what's happening. Then it sounds like a no-brainer either. Do not build too much capacity. That goes for both the capacity to produce, adding capacity in that sense, and also the sales team. So you need to have a basic sales team. Of course, we say, okay, I'm selling national. You need to have people everywhere. But maybe you only put it in some of the major cities, not in every secondary city as well. So that is one of the things that step by step, trying to not build too much capacity, because you say, okay, how much can we do? Does it add anything? So am I adding more people or am I adding more capacity? Am I also going to sell more? And what happens if at some point, the recession actually hits us? So there is a downturn in the market. Now it's up. then suddenly you have a saturation moment, or a new competitor comes in who spoils everything. We had the thing with the Puchukado, basically, that we were enjoying good profits for many years, but then a very strong competitor actually came in and really hit it right with the niche that they were, cleaning up very nicely in the market. So that's one of the things you can never predict. That's why the capacity needs to grow step by step, not like, okay, I'm going to build a factory and then see if I can fill it. And yeah, again, this seems like preaching to the choir here, but avoid having to promo your way out. That is, of course, makes a lot of sense. But as soon as you have built up too much stock, so the forecasting is wrong, then the index in the distributor, I mean the stock index in the distributor is too high, or the stock index in the retail is too high. The only thing you can do is actually promo your way out. So try to avoid doing that, because it costs you a lot of money. So sometimes have a complete promotion budget for a year. If you already, after one quarter, spend your entire year's budget, yeah, there's something horribly wrong. So that is basically one of the things that really costs a lot of money, drains a lot of money, and also a prime indicator for something that's really horribly wrong with the demand side of things. We've come to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, please like and subscribe. If not, then don't. And I hope to see you in the next video. Bye-bye.